This guy, Flash Thompson, he probably deserved what happened. But just because you can beat him up doesn't give you the right to. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. We've got my good friend Jesse Blaze Snider back on the channel to talk about something interesting. I think this also came out of some of the comments from our last conversations we had on the channel.
Yeah, when we sat with Aaron, there was a number of things that were brought up that it's just a lot of these conversations are very nuanced, and it's difficult to properly address certain things in quick comment back. But I said, Wes, I'm just going to keep perpetuating reason to be on the show by reading the comments and then going, oh, this is worth addressing.
That's where I find a lot of my my videos that I do come directly out of the comments. Like, all right, that sounds like something I could address either further or they're asking for it to be kind of talked about. But this is something I personally have a problem with comic books. And I think this will kind of lead us up into this, is when we start projecting a lot of these heroes, these superheroes, into our world. We don't have superheroes in our world. We don't have somebody that's powered by the sun that could literally rule the world if they wanted to. Superman could take over the world. Obviously, he has an injustice. There's no way, if you were a vigilante dressed like a bat that was hanging criminals off the side of a building trying to get confessions, you would be in prison. And I think projecting these characters into our world and maybe some of the sensibilities that we have into these characters to kind of bring them down to our level, it really makes it confusing with the characters. And like, you can't bring Superman down to our level.
Well, I think that you're so humble that you're missing the reality that we live in a world that is powered by heroes, firemen, EMTs, police officers, veterans like yourself, even people who are like electricians. My girlfriend's an electrician. It's a dangerous job, man. I mean, you do the wrong thing, you can literally blow yourself into smithereens. People who do trade jobs, this is, without them, we got nothing. And we look to all these superficial people, these politicians and these billionaire philanthropists or whatever, who are getting rewarded handsomely for their philanthropy. And we are so past the point of like anybody said, I'm a philanthropist, and you should be like, oh, that's great, because that they are taking advantage of every tax loophole under the sun. It's the people who are putting their body on the line that are the real heroes in this world. And the comment that came across was like, well, superheroes are unrealistic because in the real world, power corrupts, and anybody who was given this sort of power would just be corrupted. And I think that's bullshit. I think the ones who would be corrupted would be the supervillains, as we see, and the ones who are the EMTs and the firefighters and the police officers and the tradesmen, they would do something good with their powers. And when we make this terrible assumption that because the powerful people in our world are abusing their power and are going about things the wrong way, that automatically means that there is no one on the planet who would be Superman. I'm here to tell you that's bullshit. And I won't use myself as a fucking example, because I can tell you right now, if I had the power to do something, I would do good things. But I know thousands of people. I'm somebody who knows a lot of people. I'm in a lot of worlds. I play sports. I was a national champion semi-pro football player. I write comic books. I make music. I'm in the voiceover industry. I'm in the hosting industry. I've traveled a lot. I know a lot of people. And I'm telling you, there are great people in this world. One of my best friends, Mark Duran, he was a New York firefighter. Holy shit, I would give him the keys to the kingdom in a heartbeat. I know that my friend Mark would do the right thing by everybody on the planet, and that there would be no divide between race, and there would be no divide between sexes. Mark is a guy who would make sure everybody was taken care of. I know people like that, and I know
Aaron Sparrow would make a great Superman.
Aaron Sparrow would make a great Superman. That's why I love him. That's why he's one of my best friends. Aaron Sparrow makes a great friend. Aaron Sparrow makes a great co-worker, an editor, and he has always treated me with nothing but respect, called me when my page rate was going to get adjusted, had the hard conversations with me that needed to be had because that was what the situation was, handled everything as delicately and sweetly as he possibly could. You know, there are so many more people like this. It's that these people are not drawn to power. I'm not, there's parts of me that are like, man, somebody's got to friggin' clean up this world, and so there's an eye for the future of one day I'm going to do something to try to fix this. But more so right now at the moment, like I want to tell stories and I want to write songs that inspire people and make people feel glad that they did something, and I mean, even when as a voiceover actor, when I'm selling pizza or talking about food or aliens or whatever it might be, like, I did an audition for this sports show the other day, and the sports show was so negatively skewed, like all the voiceover, it was like sort of like picking at people and their personal lives. And as I was reading the script, I was like, oh man, I hope I book this because I know that nobody else is going to read it the way I'm going to read it. I was sitting there reading it with as much care for the idiosyncrasies of the people who were being spoken about. The show isn't even being produced like that. It's being produced to kind of exploit the idiosyncrasies of these sports people that they're speaking about. But I was putting into my voiceover care that they're human beings and saying everything in a way that went like, but of course this is a human being, and I can't change the script. All I can do is say it in a way that might bring humanity to it. And there are people who care about their jobs enough to do it like that. And I mean, Wes, you've been in the military. Don't you know people that you would trust with your life on a larger scale, that you would trust with Superman's powers, and you know that they wouldn't go and destroy the world or make it any worse of a place than it was yesterday?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I put my life in a lot of guys' hands there for a while. It's certainly entrusted with a whole lot of stuff, yes.
But are these people the people who are drawn to some political spot of power, or are people who are trying to build up their fortunes so that they're billionaires or trillionaires and they can, be trading stocks and all this shit? Probably not.
Well, I'm sure they're investing so they can retire one day, but they're not like naturally drawn to positions of great authority and power to where you can actually not just wield it over maybe a couple of people who work for you, but I'm talking about wielding over it like communities, wielding your power over maybe an entire state. What's interesting? Benjamin Franklin is one of my heroes. Obviously, he was one of the founding fathers. And when they were coming up with, kind of the original documents and how the government was going to run, he said specifically that no one should ever be compensated for being elected to Congress or being elected as president, because that would naturally draw bad actors in that would, if you incentivize them through any other reason than wanting to do good for their fellow man, that you would get the wrong people in the positions. And I think at this point, I personally think Benjamin Franklin was very wise, and I think we already knew that to begin with.
Absolutely wise. And, we would have fathers and we would have brothers and we would have friends in political position if it was not.
Like George Washington, there was originally, he could have been president however many times, and they had to kind of push into it. He's like, I don't want to be the president, but they said, you're the perfect person for it. You're a natural leader. You've done this and this and this. You're the man we want for the job. Reluctant to do it, went out there, did it, in the interest of the people himself, and walked away, willingly when he could have stayed in power. But we don't get a whole lot of people like that anymore.
Not at all. And now, all of this quid pro quo is going on, and the lobbying, which is just like, destroying everything. I mean, Russell Brand talks about it all the time. I mean, just like all of this money that is in these positions, it's like, are we really getting the clearest view of the vaccines and all these things? No, not when Pfizer is literally the sponsor of your show. And if you can't see that there's an inherent conflict of interest, and no, us human beings are not being good, about navigating those waters. It's just the ability to get straight truth and things being done for altruistic reasons. They're not there. And nobody who is really caring and loving is interested in being a part of that quagmire of relationships and quid pro quo. You know, I'll do for you, you do for me, and make the world go round. That's not what makes the world go round. It's really, you know, unfortunate. And we've got an even like worse, you know, sort of scenario too, where these same people who are like, well, these heroes aren't real because they would do these things and we were in this game. It's all a game, capitalism. You know, there was a comment on one of your videos that I was just, you know, I'm a fan of the channel. So I was just watching another video and I happened to comment on something somebody said. He was pointing out that about some sort of agent saying that it was better when he could sell a script for a bad thing because it proved what a great agent he was. And I made a comment of like, oh, this is why we can't have nice things. Like, this is the reason, you know, sort of dishonesty in practice, people knowingly selling rotten food. And this is the type of terribleness that makes people go, well, here's the real world and here's this world of superheroes. But the wonderful thing about the world of superheroes is you don't know who is going to get selected to have that power, to be given that ability to change things. And the creative selection that's going on is based on if I could find the perfect candidate for Superman's powers, who would be a literal Superman, that person exists somewhere. That person exists. If I was God and I could see every person on earth and determine the one that would have the moral fortitude to raise the bar, we could find him.
But it won't be in Congress. It will not be, you know, in the government, like high levels of government or anything like that. It's likely going to be someone out there serving their community.
Yeah. Well, even look at Clark Kent.
What is football coach or something doing it on their own time? You know what I mean?
And what does Clark Kent do for a living? Clark Kent's a reporter. And granted, there's a lot of unfortunate corruption within reporting as well, but there's a lot of great reporters who aren't corrupt and they eventually
when Clark was created, like the news was like a cornerstone of American culture. It was like something you could depend on. We're not there today.
No, we certainly aren't. And you know, and again, when your newspaper or your, you know, news organization is literally dependent on the pharmaceutical industry for everything that you do, are you going to be interested in alternative medicine? Of course not. Alternative medicine doesn't pay your bills. Like, you know, like this is the thing, there's a lot of ways to pet a cat. And, you know, the current state of the day right now is just the pharmaceutical mindset. I have been a sort of spiritual minded guy for a decade and a half now, in that I have gotten as far away from the pharmaceutical mindset as I possibly can, because I see that there are other ways to pet that cat. And I am interested in petting that cat that way. I have watched people who are Eastern medicine minded and other possibilities minded be demonized, called frauds and liars. They are not frauds. They are not liars. There are other ways to do this. There is not just one approach, but it is in the interest of the money to tell us all that there is only one approach and everybody better just shut up and do it the way we want it, because we stand to become billionaires off the back of a successful vaccine, off the back of a successful treatment to this thing, if we can guarantee what that treatment will be. And, you know, we live in this terrible time right now where medicines are being taken off the board because they are owned by people who aren't on the board for the company that wants to make all the money. And they're like, we're not interested in that treatment. We've got a new treatment. It's very much just the same. Maybe it's not as good. Maybe it's not as helpful. Maybe we haven't been using it for decades and people aren't as trusting of it, but we are literally going to lobby your doctor. I have friends of mine who, for a living, they are paid to go around and wine and dine doctors and tell them what to prescribe to their patients.
That's how we got into this opioid epidemic that we've been on for so long. It started out with Oxycontin, you know, the miracle drug that, you know, this isn't addictive and all these things. It turns out it was highly addictive. You went out there and lobbied doctors across the nation essentially got a ton of people addicted to it, cut them off because now you couldn't, they were prescribing it too much, and essentially drove them to heroin.
Yeah.
And it all started, with the best intentions, right?
Yeah, but it all comes down to money, right? And kind of the wonderful thing too, that again, like really, like there's plenty of truth within comic books and comic book superheroes and the way this stuff.
Oh yeah, if everyone was raised, well, with God first, because I am a Christian, but with tales of Superman and Captain America next, if everyone was raised on that and had just learned those morals and things, I think a lot less people would be corruptible or corrupted. I see a lot of people in comic books because they were raised on these morality tales of adventures, but there's tales of morality within them that, you can't bend. You can only bend so far. How's that?
Absolutely. And the secret identity that separates that access of like, oh, I'm going to go pay that guy, and then he's going to switch around his morality. Like one of the things I've hated in modern comics and modern media about superheroes as the superficial mindset has gotten into this thing. One of the first things that was said was, why would these people not say who they are? I would go out there and I would say who I was so that I want everybody to know.
I got a TikTok account.
Yeah. No. Like you are literally making the first fundamental problem to the eroding of the morality of like, oh, well, now that I can access that congressman and I can go and bribe him, now that I can access this news anchor and I can go and bribe them with a dinner, with a quid pro quo.
Can you imagine how many lobbyists would be at Tony Stark's door and be like, listen, I've got a problem that you need to fix. Let's talk about this. Let's get the Iron Man involved.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's kind of cool too, because then you can tell the story about people taking the high road there and going, no, I refuse to do this. That's not right. And like,
it would be an interesting story to tell.
It would be. But really, in the beginning, so much of the genesis of these things was an anonymity, and anonymity is wonderful. Like how many people that donate to causes and anonymously. Yeah, we got $3,000. We don't know who it was from, but somebody dropped $3,000 and they gave it to the cancer fund. And now she's able to get the treatment that she needs. That happens all the time. It's when the Rockefellers are like, yep, I'm giving $5 million. You can see, and you have to see, because I'm going to then say that I gave that $5 million to the government so that they can make sure that I get that $5 million back in another way. That's not philanthropy. That's not doing anything help. That's self-serving, and literally lobbyists have helped to rewrite those laws to make them as self-serving as possible so that people that have a lot of money can look really good. They're not doing anything good. I'm here to tell you, anybody, go investigate. Look into this. Look at the benefit that you are getting when you are that rich and you are putting this stuff in. We are literally sending COVID checks to billionaires because of the way they have done their taxes. They appear to have taken a loss. People who are making insane amounts of money, and we are sending them checks for COVID because they're not making any money. They're making money. But they have gotten very creative about how they do their taxes. And if they are telling you about the money that they are giving to whatever, they are not doing any sort of charity.
That's the Congress problem. If you see our tax code, it's beyond ridiculous. And all those loopholes are in there for a reason. It's certainly not to benefit me or the normal guy or gal that's out there working, 9 to 5, doing some hard work every day, sending their money to the government. Those things are written in there to help a certain class of people. That's on the lawmakers. It is ridiculous.
But to do things in secret and to be given a power at random to the and creatively speaking, we're always looking for the person who would execute the metaphor for the power or the metaphor for the thing as strongly as possible. The X-Men,
as selflessly as possible. Yeah,
as selflessly as possible. But even the X-Men, like one of the reasons why Cyclops, or one of the things that plays really cool to say Cyclops or Rogue, Cyclops has a damage to his eyes. In addition to being a mutant, he's got this inability to control his power in this way. He's disabled. And these are the things that stretch the metaphor. Rogue, she can't touch anybody. It's these things that are putting them into an extra position of difficulty where they have an appreciation for the power that they've been given. Or in the case of, Superman, he's this immigrant, who was brought into the Midwest, and we've decided to put him with the cherry pie old couple that is going to most pointedly teach him what it really means to be, the truth, justice, and the American way. And, it's so terrible how that's been demonized because, I hate how America is in the financial part of America, keeps getting capitalistic aspect of America has gotten in the way of the altruistic idea of what we represent. But the idea stands. The idea stands. The idea of us rushing, even though we didn't quite rush, over to Europe to go save the day and be cowboy, the cowboy storming in on his horse to save the day, to save the innocent people. That's a wonderful idea. That's great. And when we're talking about the American way, just because you've put a whole bunch of skewed onto what that means, doesn't mean that it still doesn't mean the thing. It means something wonderful. And I really just I can point to 1,000 people that I could put in charge tomorrow, and they would do a better job. I know that if I was the multiple man and I duplicated myself and put myself into every piece of leadership on this planet, that we would not have any war, that people would be more free, that people would have more money, that people would be able to make it in this world easier. There would be less suffering. Just give it to a couple people who have experienced some real suffering, who have experienced some real hardship, and things would change overnight. But instead, those who are angling towards power, and we were talking about people dating, and that there's only 10% of the people, the boys that are on the dating website actually get any attention from the girls, and it's basically the handsome ones who have good jobs. It's not the people who have good character because they've lived and they've learned, the people who deserve the support of a good woman. It's the guys who have managed to finagle themselves into some sort of position of power and have been given some sort of natural ability to be handsome or charming. And what is that? What is that world? That is the world that we're living in when people are leaning into and playing these things. But that does not preclude the idea that there are good guys, because the nice guys finish last because of thinking like this. The thinking creates the idea about what the world is like and creates this illusory idea that there's no superheroes, there's no real genuine moral people in this world. Look what happens every time someone's given power. No, look what happens every time those people are given power. I promise you, if we went down to the local fire department and picked the best guys that those firemen said, who's the best one in the room? Give him some power. I bet we could take a friggin' person from every fire department on the planet, put them in charge of our government, or give them some superpowers, and things would change like that.
All I'm saying, Jesse, is do not demonize good looks and charm, because without that, I got nothing here. I'm working on empty. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, that's how you got yourself in this sweet position you're in.
I'm not rich or anything. That's the good part. But I got to work with something. I do want to say thank you very much to Jesse. Kind of talk about. I get what you're saying. That there could be superheroes in this world. There are people of high moral fiber. They just aren't the people that are out there absolutely actively searching that power.
Yeah,
it would need to be given to them, just like in a comic book. When the Ring found Hal Jordan, it was not looking for the most powerful person on Earth. It was looking for the person with the strongest will that was ready to use the power.
Yeah, I think the best people are not pressing their advantage. They're testing themselves. And is political aspirations a real test for yourself? Or is it a test for yourself to see if you can man up and go into that burning building and pull somebody out alive? Is it a test for yourself to see if you can see blood squirting out everywhere and still stay calm and administer the right help to somebody when they're at their worst moment and they could die if you don't keep it together? People who are really great people, they like to test themselves, and they don't have supervillains to go fight. So they go and they fight the real problems of the real world. They exist. They're out there. And if we did a better job at searching for them, I think we would live in a much better world than we do, and we wouldn't have all these misunderstandings about how, power corrupts everybody. No, it corrupts the people who are interested in power. There are people who are incorruptible. I believe.
Absolutely. I read the Lord of the Rings. There's a Frodo out there.
There is a Frodo out there.